Disclaimer, if you really don't like gross stories, or if you have a weak stomach, you probably don't want to listen to this. But if you want some more knowledge, go for it. So, I instantly, as soon as I said to myself, I want to release all of this pain, I want to release any of the hurt that resides in my body. And I had a lot of hurt actually on surface levels of my body. I had hematomas from an abusive relationship. I had bruises and scars, and every time I looked at myself, I wasn't okay with who I was. I didn't want to be me actually, and I didn't want to be in my own body. And so for me, I had to release almost like a ego, or like a idea of what my body was versus what I wanted to be. So this is when it happens. I feel everything go tight all over my face, and I actually touch my face. In this room, there's no walls, there's no mirrors. You can't look at yourself. I knew automatically the minute my eyes pretty much just squinted, and I had no control over it. My entire face was swollen. I was so swollen, and I wasn't even gagging. I was making a riveting noise, almost as though I was taking on this tree spirit. And then I start salivating. Have you ever seen those eels start creating this mucus everywhere? That was me. I opened my mouth and I leaned over into the bucket, and it felt like everything was covered in mucus, and I just started spitting. I didn't even have a choice. The minute I opened my mouth, it just came out, and I had no idea what to do. Then I felt everything close. Everything. My throat was closing. I didn't know what to do, and I felt like I was choking. I started panicking. I just open my mouth, and I'm trying to gag. I'm trying to puke. I'm trying to get this out of me. The girl next to me was trying to make herself throw up, because I guess she'd been crying for so long and she wanted to purge. The shaman came over to her, pulled her hand out of her mouth, and he said, "No. If you're going to purge, you're going to purge. If you're not going to purge, it's not meant for you today." And that's exactly when it happened. I just started spewing up this black liquid. Like, oh my goodness, it was black, it was red, it was just horrible. I had never seen anything like that. Here I am, and I'm just purging into this tiny little bucket. Everybody had pretty much gone through their process by then and was laying down, and the shaman had covered them with blankets. They were almost sleeping. A couple of people decided to get up and start leaving. Yeah, I probably filled up like 5 to 8 buckets of toxins that were just residing in me, whether they were memories, whether they were feelings, whether they were just situations I had been in, put myself in, anything, things that were affected in my body. And for me, that was super hard actually, to see all of that just coming up. Yeah, just thinking about it right now, it got to a point where so much was coming up, I was crying. And I was crying so much, and I just wanted it to stop, but I knew it was good for me, and so I was crying, and the shaman's assistants were really nice, and the ladies came around, they sprayed me with some stuff, they sprayed it with some more water, they had, sage and Palo Santo burning, so that I was very calm and really grounded. But I got to a point where I was sobbing so hard, and I was kind of screaming, I just want all of this hurting to end, I just want all of this hurting to end. And before I knew it, I was choking completely choking. Everything that was coming out was happening so fast, and it was so much. I didn't even have time to breathe. And they came over to me and they told me to sit on my legs, like sit on my knees, and so I could lean forward. And then they told me to, the minute that I was stop purging, to like pull my body like up so that I could really get the airflow through my body, because they could see it was really a lot for me. So once all the purging happens and I'd stop crying and things are slowing down, and the shamanic assistant realized that, okay, I think she could probably break away from this wall. She was amazing. She drummed for almost 2 hours straight, singing around me, chanting around me, so I could go through this process. Once everything had happened, I started to feel better, and I laid down. I was able to lay down. I'd stopped puking after an hour and a half, almost 2 hours of just straight, non-stop purging. It got to a point where I laid down and I closed my eyes, and for the first time in my life, I felt okay. And for somebody who has dealt with severe anxiety her entire life, it was so strange to just feel okay. I lay there for about half an hour, and I started to feel good, and I spoke with the shamans. I thanked them, I thanked the assistants, and I decided from there I was going to go home. But I'd probably say one of the best things that Kambo did for me in terms of like a pro was it helped me with my anxiety. Whenever I had severe anxiety attacks, I'm pretty sure a lot of people can vouch for this, a lot of the time you think you're about to die. Some of the attacks are so severe, you will stop breathing. It's almost like you can't talk. It's almost like your throat swells up really hard and you just can't get the words out, and it doesn't matter how much you're trying to get those words out, it doesn't happen. Having an anxiety attack, especially a severe anxiety attack, you feel so lost. You feel like things are closing in on you. You feel like things are getting darker around you, almost like when a horse has blinders, like there's nothing else you can see besides the state that you're about to be in. And even if you try and run away from it, it's almost like it's going to catch up to you. It's going to get you. Kambo took that feeling away from me. It made me go through it to a point where I didn't fear it anymore. I'd realized that in my anxiety attacks, it was more or less the fear of not being able to breathe, the fear that, I was losing vision, the fear that I didn't have clarity, the fear that my throat was going to close up. But during Kambo, all those things actually happened. My eyes were so puffy, they just came right in, and I couldn't see anything. It didn't matter where I looked. It was like looking through these thick eyelashes. I was just like, oh God. I couldn't see. My body was so hot, and I was experiencing so many physical emotions that I had no clarity in that moment, and I really had to dive deep to remember what it was I wanted to release. And then when my throat closed, that was probably one of the scariest moments ever. My throat closing was like my worst nightmare, to be 1000% honest for you. I felt like I was drowning in my own saliva, and the only thing that I could do was lean over and try and get it out. So for me, it added a whole nother level. Anxiety was all the things that I had feared in my mind, but Kambo, doing a Kambo ceremony made those fears almost physical. It brought them on the outside. And through that, I actually learned that I'm a whole lot stronger than I think I am, and that I don't have to fear these things, because you'll make it out okay, just like I made it out okay. And from that, I'd probably say my most positive thing about Kambo was that it took away my severe anxiety. It helped me purge all the things about anxiety that I was really afraid of. And for that, I'm so grateful. So, a couple of people do ask me, are there any cons to doing Kambo or having a Kambo ceremony? I would say not in my experience. If you feel called by the Amazon medicine, then I would definitely suggest doing a little bit more information, watching this video, and figuring out if that's something that you want to go through. It's definitely used to help depression, anxiety, chronic pain, a couple different illnesses, but you really have to be ready. You really have to have that mindset of like, yes, this is what I'm going to do. I'm ready for it, and I'm not looking back. Because once it happens, there's no looking back. After Kambo, I started realizing that to purge things in my life was like that. Super easy. Now, if you're not somebody who really likes change, you might have a couple emotions that are not okay with how you're feeling on the inside. But to me, I just see that as a positive, to be 1000% honest, because we know the things that are not good for us, but sometimes we stay attached to them due to emotional reasons and whatnot, habitual reasons, so forth. Kambo doesn't allow for that. There's no space anymore to hold on to things that don't serve you. So once doing it, you'll probably be a little bit changed, or a lot of it changed, and if somebody's not good for you, if a place doesn't serve you, you might just start getting rid of them like that. And so once you do Kambo, you realize that comfort is not really the best, actually. It's a lot better to be uncomfortable in situations, because that way you're constantly adapting to them. You're constantly changing, you're thriving, you're moving, you're progressing. So for me, it wasn't really a negative, it was definitely a positive. Thing that Kambo is super great for is getting rid of spiritual negative energies or any entities that might be attached to you or anything like that. There's a couple people there who said that they felt like almost like their life force was being drained, and then they felt like something had attached themselves to them. And by doing Kambo, you could actually see like their skin was more radiant, they had more light to them, they looked lighter overall, they weren't so slouchy or, in the ground. And from what I experienced and what I had witnessed, all these other people going through in the exact same room as me, we were all there for different reasons. And in the end, this natural medicine, this holistic form of healing, really helped all of us to a point where I don't think it's possible to actually go back to the old ways. You can try, but it's just something that doesn't serve you anymore, so it's not going to be available. It's not going to be as easy as it was before either. I would definitely say if it's something that calls you, go for it. And they told me if I just left it alone, I would have a scar. I kind of miss my scar a little bit. Just a little bit. It's not as heavy as it was before, I guess. Or visible, but if you want it to go away right away, just go ahead and use some vitamin E oil. You'll be good to go. Sacred practice. It needs to be done in a safe and sacred space where you trust the person that's giving it to you. With that, I would say, do your research, get knowledgeable, watch this video, and decide if Sapo or Kambo, the green frog, is for you. Thanks so much for sharing my story time, guys. Finish your tea and enjoy your day. Reckless Spirit signing off.